To me, I remember reading this article and thinking, this is a big step, because up until now, you sort of saw it in a bunch of other places. You saw it in some really good science magazines like Nature magazine, but finally hits the New England Journal. It's like, okay, no matter how conservative and old school the doc might be, it becomes really hard to argue with the point. And so as you start going through this article, it wasn't original research. It wasn't studies, as you know. It was more of a review. And then really it became more of a policy statement. Actually, I should have been showing this image when you were describing what you were describing, because this is the image that gets into, okay, you've got the mitochondria, which are the powerhouses. You've got a bunch of different metabolic processes going all the way back to the genetic components, and a recognition that, you know what, we have the same genetics in our 20s that we have in our 50s. Why are we getting insulin resistant in our 50s? Maybe it's because, I think there's two things. I think there's some inherent aging, but I also think it's clear that it's not just aging causing insulin resistance alone. I think the habit of eating 3 meals a day minimum for 60 years or 55 years has a little something to do with our epigenetics. And that's a major component of what happens here. We go back and we start changing the signals, changing the librarian that has to go back and look for different enzymes, different genes. If we start getting our body used to knowing that we're going to have episodes where we need to pull energy out of storage and out of trash, stimulating autophagy. As you know, autophagy is just a slightly different and a little bit more of an aggressive form of using internal energy than just burning the glycogen that's in your liver, the sugar stores in your liver and glycogen, more so than burning fat. You're actually burning old, beat up, dead mitochondria that are just no longer working, and other things as well. So yeah, it did a great job in terms of describing a lot of the metabolic changes which are attributable to this process of developing more of a catabolic as opposed to anabolic phase, or getting ketotic. Couple of points about that terminology: catabolic and anabolic. Catabolism is where you're burning stuff that's already stored. The three things I mentioned: stored glycogen, stored fat energy, and stored cell trash. Anabolic is, you recognize that term from anabolic steroids. That's where you're wanting to build muscles up, build cells up. And as long as we're not going through any of these intermittent fasting states, our body is in a constant anabolic mode. And that may be good for growth, but it's not good for our basic metabolism, our basic avoidance of the chronic diseases, which are almost all vascular related. It was interesting, some of the points they made about the microbiome in there. And what was also interesting to me was how they ended up the article talking about, okay, you know what? We need to have much more of an organized, we need the standard medical community out there now talking about intermittent fasting. So that is interesting. I am curious to see how long that'll take. Any comments about that?
Well, I'm smiling because you and I both know that's going to be a tough road to hoe. It is tough sledding to get entrenched behaviors. And so doctors are just like regular people when it comes to behavior change. Any of us with entrenched behaviors, whatever those are, and we talked about forks and furniture, it's hard to change. And the medical establishment is no different, and maybe harder because it's so much bigger. But I loved this chart that was in the article because it is prescriptive for what we should be doing.
So we've had a lot of people ask about how to get into the CIMT event. We've got a whole schedule on the membership page. I'm going to take you through that real quick. First of all, you go to prevmedheartrisk.com. That takes you to our website. Click on the membership login page, and membership is free. You just have to give your email address. Then you'll see you've got a menu over on the left, live webinars, second live webinar, CIMT events. Click that button, then click the gray button, and you see all of the schedule for getting a good, reliable CIMT near your area. Orlando, Central Western Ohio, just west of Cincinnati. Austin, Texas, Detroit, Michigan, Rochester, Memphis. Lots of places, and most of these are thanks to our good friend David Mites. And again, CIMT done reliably has got a lot of advantages. Very good way to screen, much better than stress test, and a lot more comfortable than going to the cath lab. Thank you for your interest, and go get a good CIMT near you.